On October 6, 2025, the Supreme Court delivered a decision that would send shockwaves through the nation, fundamentally reshaping both American trade and the scope of presidential power. In a landmark ruling, the court struck down tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, declaring them unconstitutional and setting a powerful precedent for future administrations. The justices made it clear, only Congress has the authority to regulate commerce with foreign nations, not the president. This interpretation of the Commerce Clause reasserts the separation of powers at the heart of the Constitution. This decision affirmed lower court findings that the tariffs lacked proper legal backing, and that executive action alone could not justify such sweeping economic measures. The ruling is a major check on executive power, reinforcing the balance the Constitution demands and reminding the nation that no branch is above the law. For American businesses, this opens the door to massive refunds, potentially up to $200 billion. Companies across the country are now preparing claims, hoping to recover funds lost to years of tariffs. The government now faces a daunting administrative challenge to unwind years of tariff collections, with agencies scrambling to process claims and manage the financial impact. Beyond economics, the decision forces a fundamental reevaluation of U.S. trade policy, especially with China. Lawmakers and diplomats must now rethink strategies for international negotiations. The trade war, as it was known, has been fundamentally altered by the nation's highest court, changing the landscape for global commerce and diplomatic relations. This case will be studied for decades as a defining moment in the ongoing debate over presidential authority, executive overreach, and the limits of power in a democracy. Future presidents will now face clear limits when it comes to imposing major economic decisions, ensuring that the checks and balances envisioned by the founders remain strong. The legal battle began in 2018, when the Trump administration imposed sweeping tariffs, citing national security. Businesses and legal experts quickly challenged the move, arguing the president had overstepped his authority. Thousands of companies sued, claiming the tariffs hurt their competitiveness and were unconstitutional. Lower courts began ruling against the government in 2023, and appellate courts upheld those decisions. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, signaling its importance for the separation of powers. The issue became a flashpoint in political debates and the 2024 election. The Biden administration maintained some tariffs, adding to the controversy. Just before the Supreme Court's hearing, a congressional report highlighted Congress's historic control over trade. This context set the stage for the court's decisive October 2025 ruling. At the heart of the Supreme Court's decision is a simple question: who sets America's trade policy? The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate commerce and set tariffs. While Congress has sometimes delegated limited trade authority to the president, it always sets clear boundaries. The Trump administration argued that national emergencies justified broad executive action. But the courts disagreed, finding the president had exceeded the authority Congress granted. This ruling reaffirms that the president cannot unilaterally impose sweeping trade barriers. The president's role is to execute laws and negotiate, not to bypass Congress on major economic decisions. If a president wants to make dramatic changes to trade policy, Congress must explicitly authorize it. This ensures public debate and legislative oversight, just as the founders intended. The Supreme Court's decision is a powerful reminder of this constitutional design. The Supreme Court's ruling is a textbook example of the separation of powers in action. The Constitution divides government into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, to prevent anyone from dominating. This case saw the judicial branch check the executive, reinforcing Congress's authority over trade. The court looked to history and precedent, finding that economic aspects of trade belong to Congress. The president's foreign affairs power does not override Congress's explicit control over tariffs. The ruling doesn't judge the wisdom of tariffs, only the process by which they're imposed. If tariffs are to be part of U.S. policy, Congress must authorize them. This decision strengthens the rule of law and ensures the president operates within constitutional limits. It's a clear reminder: even the president must follow the nation's founding framework. The Supreme Court's decision has triggered what many are calling refund chaos, sending shockwaves through the business community and government agencies alike. Since 2018, American companies have paid up to $200 billion in tariffs on imported goods, costs that have weighed heavily on their bottom lines. Now, with the court's ruling, they're entitled to seek refunds for those payments, creating a massive financial opportunity. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency is now facing an unprecedented wave of refund claims, with thousands of businesses submitting requests and overwhelming the system. To qualify, businesses must gather years' worth of documentation, invoices, and shipping records. The process is expected to be slow, complex, and resource-intensive, requiring significant time and effort from both companies and government officials. For many companies, these refunds could mean a chance to reinvest in their operations, expand their workforce, or even lower prices for consumers. The financial relief could spark new growth and innovation across industries. Some businesses absorb the tariffs, cutting into profits, while others pass the costs onto customers, contributing to higher prices and inflation across the country. The refunds may help undo some of that financial damage, but the process itself will be costly and time-consuming for everyone involved, from small businesses to large corporations. The end of these tariffs will lower import costs, potentially reducing prices on a wide range of goods, from electronics and appliances to furniture and clothing, benefiting both businesses and consumers. However, some U.S. companies will now face increased foreign competition, while others will benefit from cheaper imported materials and components, reshaping their strategies and supply chains. The economic landscape for American businesses and workers is shifting dramatically, with new challenges and opportunities emerging as the market adapts to these sweeping changes. The aftermath of this decision will be felt for years to come, as companies, workers, and consumers adjust to a new era in American trade and business. The Supreme Court's decision sends shockwaves through global trade and U.S. international relations. The tariffs were a key weapon in a trade war with China, fueling global economic tension. Their removal signals a shift away from unilateral confrontational trade policy. China, the main target, will likely see this as a positive step, opening the door to new negotiations. The ruling doesn't resolve deeper disputes, but it lowers the temperature and encourages dialogue. U.S. allies, many of whom were also hit by tariffs, may welcome a return to a more predictable, rules-based system. The decision demonstrates the strength of American checks and balances, reassuring partners worldwide. The U.S. may now move toward more collaborative trade policies, working with Congress and international allies. The executive branch can no longer act alone. Future trade policy will require broader consensus. This could lead to a more stable and predictable global economic environment. With the ruling in effect, American companies must now pursue refunds, a process expected to be slow and complex. Many businesses are still trying to fully understand the implications, and legal teams are working overtime to interpret the details of the decision. Businesses need to gather extensive paperwork and file claims with Customs and Border Protection. This involves tracking down old invoices, import records, and proof of payment, which can be a daunting task for companies of all sizes. Legal experts urge quick action, but delays are inevitable due to the sheer volume of claims. Many companies may face months of waiting before seeing any financial relief, and some may need to hire additional help just to manage the process. For consumers, the impact will be gradual. Most shoppers won't notice immediate changes at the checkout, as it takes time for cost adjustments to work their way through the supply chain. Lower import costs may eventually lead to lower prices, but not overnight. Retailers and manufacturers will first need to recalculate their expenses and adjust pricing strategies accordingly. Some companies may keep prices steady to recover losses, while others may pass savings to customers. The response will vary by industry, and consumers may see different effects depending on what they buy. Congress now holds the power to decide if new tariffs are needed, setting the stage for major political debate. Lawmakers will be under pressure from both industry groups and consumer advocates as they consider next steps. Lawmakers will weigh protecting industries against the benefits of free trade. The outcome could reshape the landscape for American businesses and workers for years to come. The executive branch must now rely on diplomacy and collaboration, not unilateral action. International partners will be watching closely to see how the U.S. approaches future trade negotiations. The Supreme Court's decision resets the rules for trade policy, shifting power back to Congress. This marks a significant change in how trade disputes and tariffs will be handled going forward. Businesses, consumers, and policymakers must all adapt to this new reality. Each group will need to stay informed and flexible as the situation evolves. The coming months will be a period of adjustment and uncertainty. As the effects ripple through the economy, everyone will be watching to see what happens next. The Supreme Court's decision is a defining moment for American democracy. It reaffirms the separation of powers and limits executive authority, ensuring the president is not above the law. This ruling is a vital course correction, checking decades of expanding presidential power. Major economic decisions must now go through Congress, strengthening accountability and democracy. Future presidents will be constrained by this precedent, shaping policy for generations. Globally, the decision signals a shift toward collaboration and stability in international affairs. Allies can trust that U.S. policy is grounded in law, not the whims of one leader. The ruling will be remembered as a landmark case, clarifying the roles of each branch of government. It provides a path forward for businesses and reshapes America's relationship with the world. Above all, it's a powerful reminder that the rule of law and checks and balances are essential to liberty.